On this episode of Athletes Anonymous Presents After the Buzzer, we are going to be talking about Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat taking on Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets in game one. Also, the coaching carousel. So let's get to that intro. Music. I'm not stalling because it's loading. I'm just giving a really long intro just in case there was. Okay, it's loaded. And welcome back to the podcast. I am your co-host, Keone McKeague, and with me, as always, are my longtime friends and co-hosts, Nolan Chang, Jared Shirai. Say what's up to the pod, boys.
Hello.
What's up?
Troy me off with the hand motions in the beginning.
I don't know. It kept going. I was like, I got one for you, Nolan. I was like, I got one
how
for
are we
you.
doing this week? How's you guys' week been?
So long and exhausting, but I'm here.
I was saying, you coaching today, man.
Tomorrow.
Hopefully it was good.
Well, we'll break that down on Team Huddle.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Anyway, so we're here to talk about what's going on in the NBA. Obviously, there's been a lot as far as the coaching carousel is concerned. So we're just going to start there before we get into the games that have been, the game that happened, because I think game 2 is what, today, tomorrow? Tomorrow. Gotcha. So, yeah.
I looked it up.
So we're going to talk about some of the coaches that moved around. It's been a really weird, interesting thing. One thing I kind of wanted to hit on, because I know we talked about him particularly before and his controversy and all that stuff. I don't know if that's even been ironed out or whatever. But I'm going to talk to you first, Nolan. Houston Rockets hire Ime Udoka, right? We're just going through the list of events, right? Celtics let go of him. There's all that controversy surrounding his whatever. Joe Mazzulla steps in. Ime Udoka gets hired by the Houston Rockets after nothing really comes of what happened prior to it. And now there's rumors that basically half of the coaching staff from Boston will be leaving Boston to go work for Ime Udoka once again, which generally makes sense, right? They did technically hire him with him. Yeah. But I'm just curious because there is kind of this thing going on right now where people are talking about whether or not this is a reflection on Joe Mazzulla himself, who obviously didn't get them to the finals this year, or we're not going to blame it on him because that's kind of a thing we don't want to do here, but or if this is a reflection of whether or not Brad Stevens is good at kind of the general relations with his kind of guys below. So I'm just curious to your thoughts as to whether or not this is like a Brad Stevens issue because now he's the GM of that team, or do you think this is more just kind of Ime Udoka getting the guys that he brought on and it really doesn't have to do anything with any of that stuff?
I'm leaning more towards the idea that it is just Ime Udoka, because I feel like if it was something where, the coaching staff or, clientele within the organization were upset with how Brad Stevens was kind of operating, I think that would have come out in some sort of fashion at some point. Brad Stevens was a very renowned coach when he was in the seat. So I don't think it has anything to do with him, because I believe, just in general, everyone that has worked with Brad Stevens has had nothing but good things to say about him, whether it is his professionalism, his personality, and he's never rubbed people the wrong way. And I do think it is kind of just a short end of the stick for Joe Mazzulla, because it's the coaching staff Ime Udoka brought in, was hired with. They kind of had this relationship core, and he gets indefinitely suspended, has not been hired by another team. So this could have happened way earlier if he was picked up a lot sooner. Before the season actually started. Obviously, no coach is going to leave mid-season. But I do think it's just a matter of, hey, yeah, Joe, obviously we'll have your back through this season. But once Ime does kind of get a position our dedication and our loyalty is to him. And I don't think that, yeah, like you mentioned, I don't think it's anything disrespectful to Joe Mazzulla.
Mhm.
It looks like that way on paper. It kind of does seem that way, probably from the outside common
Yeah,
fan
because
looking
it's like
in.
3 assistants maybe. So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
damn, that's like his whole staff is gone.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
And
yeah,
bye.
yeah.
so it's really just going to depend also to see how Joe Mazzulla bounces back. It's going to be a very pressure-filled offseason for the Celtics in general. And this is just an extra added weight on top of it. So
Yeah.
we'll see. But I do think it's mainly just their loyalty and their respect for Udoka.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kind of a follow up question, Jared, because obviously there's a lot of turmoil going on in the front office part of this. And then we have the basketball side of this where we see what happened once again, in the conference finals and kind of Jalen Brown, for all intents and purposes, didn't have himself that great of a game in game seven. He's owed over 300 mil because he did hit that super max by making the all NBA first team alongside Jason Tatum. I mean, do you think that they should run it back with the same core? Is this something that now they have, the kind of coaching carousel going on with the assistants? They got kind of like this outside drama with Ime Udoka. Obviously, I don't know if you've heard the rumors, like them talking about how whether or not they'd rather have had Ime Udoka this year as opposed to Joe Mazzulla, especially now seeing him getting hired with the Rockets. And then obviously like the elephant in the room of whether or not him and Tatum can fit together, seamlessly heading into, the rest of the Celtics era that they're in right now. So what are your thoughts on whether or not they keep it together, blow it up? Like what would you say?
Man, that's a tough one. Because I think it was in that series that they ended up losing that you kind of like got the sense, and I think it was said kind of where he had lost the locker room,
Yeah, that's a really good
and
point.
so like that's the respect factor, like that's one thing that comes to mind, on top of the fact of you said like they would rather have had Ime Udoka this upcoming season. They did a bunch of great things out of them. And it's hard, it only because like you talk about the staff and the staff that left, so it's not just the players, obviously, that's going
Yeah.
through all this stuff. The staff, I don't want to say the staff lost respect for him, but at the same time, they want to go coach with who brought them in. So how much of the system was really his? So maybe he brings in good assistant coaches that buy under his system, and the players will buy in under that because he has like another full season with his
Yeah.
people, not like using an old core. Of course, I mean we'll talk about the Jalen Brown, Jason Tatum thing after this, but I mean, for the coaching standpoint of things, I think like he needs to gain the respect again. And like you guys said, it's going to be a very pressure filled offseason because people are leaving. Who are you going to fill that with? And if you fill it with a bunch of good names, or at least a bunch of good people that have been around the league, who have
Hmm.
good systems, who you can play into, that play into the players as well, because that's always going to be the biggest thing, right? You want to players to bring people in into the system that is going to work in your
Yeah.
system. Like, I'm not going to bring somebody random and say, "Hey, Jason Tatum, you're totally going to change the way you
Yeah.
play the game
Yeah.
now." And it's like, no, that's not smart on his half. So I think that's where it starts in that regard, finding good people there. As far as the Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown thing, I mean, that's tough because we talked about getting rid of Jalen Brown because I think it's like we talked about, it's kind of Jason Tatum's team to
Yeah.
have. But at the same time, if you're owing him all that money, if you want that, if you're thinking, if people are saying that Jason Tatum didn't show up in Game 7 as well because he really
Yeah.
didn't as well, and that's 2 years in a row, and maybe Tatum's got to go. And dude, I think you could get a lot for him beyond DeMar DeRozan, because I know that name was just going to pop up
I mean, I'm
right
just saying,
away,
veteran
but.
presence. That's just like.
but
Jesus
but I mean
Christ.
I mean I don't see them. Yeah, exactly. No, I don't see them running it back though. It's
Yeah.
tough. It's tough to see them run it back just on the fact of two unsuccessful seasons. Like the chemistry is there during the regulars. It's okay, and I hate to put it like this. It's like the Raptors. Chemistry is great during the regular season. Looks great. They get to the postseason, and frick, it's hit or miss. And then and in the last few years, it's been tank.
Yeah.
Literally is what it's what it reminds me of, where they have such a good regular season. They have the high hopes. Always, like, we thought they were going to be a top three. I thought they were coming out of the East. When we talked about the playoff picture, and then you look at the big part of it, and it's just like, what's going on? Why isn't it working? And I think something needs to change. Maybe they get a younger core around them, like the Al Horfords and stuff. Got to go. I do think they have a lot of good pieces, but unless that system that they bring in, like their coordinators decide to work into making the team the way it was before, I think that's a great thing. If not, then I think it's time to kind of go in a new direction. As far as letting one of them go, I don't think both of them should go. Because if you're sending both of them, then you're literally just basically sacrificing your season, and I'm pretty sure he's going to get fired
Yeah.
after that year.
Yeah.
Like there's no joke about that. Like, you can't risk your 2 first team All NBA players just to try and sell for a big rebuild when you've been to the finals and the conference finals 2 years in a row. I mean, that's tough to blow up a team that big. So I think one of them go. I know Jaylen Brown was the one that we had talked about, but at the same time, Jason Tatum, kind of the same thing. I feel like last year was Tatum was staple, this year Jaylen Brown. So I mean, either one could be one of it. For me, I would want to build more around Tatum. I think his game is more buildable. Like, it's easier to build around him because of the things that he does and the way he does things. Not saying Jaylen Brown's a bad player, but I do think if I had to pick between the two, I would keep Jason Tatum.
I mean,
I don't think Jaylen Brown's a bad player.
No.
I just think sometimes, like, it's hard when you're a top 2 player and you have to live in the shadow, and you're kind of the same player, but just I would say Jason Tatum just has a little bit more of an edge than Jaylen Brown does. They're kind of the same player.
Got a little bit more to his game. I was like, it's just tweaked,
and that's why, like,
better,
you need somebody that complements it, not somebody that's the same person that you are. And I think that's where it goes if you have to release one of them, or not release one of them, but you know what I mean. Look for different options with one.
I'm gonna throw this over to you, Nolan. I'm curious because there are a handful of teams where have been rumored. Just give me quick hitter, whether or not you would, or whether or not you think that this swap would be beneficial for at least the Celtics side of it. We'll keep it to the Celtics side. Because there's been a few, but I'm gonna say Dame Lillard in number 3
for
Jaylen Brown. We're assuming Jaylen Brown in any city. Yeah.
Okay.
I would do it. You can definitely trade off. I don't know what's left on their contracts. You can trade off the 6th man of the year, Brogdon, as well as Derek White. You could probably still retain Marcus Smart, and plus, since you're getting him off your cap space, Dame Lillard is still on the lower max technically from when he signed his contract.
Yeah, much lower. Yeah.
So you
especially
can at least
now, like $50 million a year. It's insane.
So you can still have some decent guards to back up them if you do kind of trade off those assets, and then you can kind of fill in that stretch wing that you do need, depending on who is retained. Grant Williams and Robert Williams could probably, if Al Horford is let go or not re-signed, you can definitely use those two as your 4-5, and then have a still great wing core.
Agree. Another one that's thrown out there: Toronto Raptors, Pascal Siakam. There is rumor that it could be both OG and Pascal, but
now if it's that, I would say hell yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Pascal Siakam, I don't know if he is. Yeah, straight up,
I don't think so.
I'm not with that.
Yeah, straight up, that's a tough sell.
It's funny because there's another one that I think.
No, there's Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet.
No, he's going to Lakers.
That would be. Right?
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, there's that one, but...
I mean, well, with the trade rumors, I was like, that's why you could throw his name into it.
Well, it's funny because then there's like the off rumors that I just really don't think I couldn't see happening, like the Mavericks, who are one team, but I'm like, who do they have?
You'd have to give up a lot.
They have number 10. Is number 10 really moving you when you got Jaylen Brown? I don't know. Like that to me, it doesn't seem like like I don't know about that one. Then the last one that I have for you is Trae Young.
No. He doesn't play good enough defense, and he doesn't buy into team scheme.
I don't think Trae Young by himself. Maybe if you were getting like I don't even know.
Sadiq Bey, maybe?
That's tough.
I mean,
But I don't know. I feel like that Bay there is a nice
Yeah, that's
nice
why I'm like, because
compliment.
like you
We talked about
yeah.
Bay staying, and that could
Or
be his outbreak
what's
season.
his name? The
Moving on from
shooter, the one I
Detroit.
always talk about. The young cat just was a rookie.
Oh, Hunter? No.
No, not Hunter. I forgot his name.
Griffin? No.
Griffin. Yep.
Griffin,
I
right?
think it's Adrian
Adrian
Griffin or
Griffin?
something like that. Yeah, maybe it might be something.
Oh,
Yeah,
Adrian
yeah,
Griffin.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the
That
one you
could be
always talk
one.
about.
I mean, I don't know. I was just like,
Yeah. Oh,
AJ
AJ
Griffin. There we
AJ
go. I was like,
Griffin.
it's
We were
something with an
close.
A. Griffin.
AJ
Yeah,
Griffin.
yeah.
So I was like, give me a
I
second.
think
I gotta pull
Adrian
this
Griffin's
up.
the head coach. That got hired.
Yeah, that's the head coach. Oh yeah, that is.
I was like,
the
name Adrian Griffin came
You know why? I know.
Yeah.
I know
Blake
Adrian
Griffin.
Peter
Yeah.
Griffin.
Like I know Adrian Griffin was like rumored to go to the Bulls like way back when, like a few years back when they did Hoiberg. But anyway, okay. Well, so we're basically on the train of like it has to be like Dame or really nothing else because I was just like, damn. I mean, I just think about it. I'm like, it's just weird. I don't know who would fit into it and also give them the assets back. That's like worth it. Like,
Man, Golden State might be able
oh.
to put something together. Like no joke, Golden State could put something together. They have
Actually,
enough
then you
package
think
money
about teams like
deals,
Golden State, even the Brooklyn has. I mean, if they were to include
Yeah, Brooklyn has all the
Cal,
trade picks
even
that they
I
have.
mean, you
The
know what I
packs
mean?
that they
Like there
have.
could be a lot of packages that could be
Like,
put out there, but
yeah, I'm kind of just looking through the list of like
yeah,
teams, and I'm like, dude, that could be
like
a kind of a
even
package.
the
I mean, Washington might be able to like Porzingis or um not Porzingis and Beal because we were talking about Beal getting out of there and things like that. Like that could be kind of a interesting or Kuzma,
he's like Beal
you
and
know,
Kuzma has to
that could
sign.
be an interesting.
oh yeah, he's a free agent.
No, but I mean that could be an interesting, kind of an
Yeah,
interesting move
that
for
would
them
be
in
an
general.
interesting. Yeah,
Could sign and trade and
yeah,
whatever,
I know it's so weird. I mean, I'm
But,
sorry, I don't want to linger on this issue too long.
and I think that would benefit both
Yeah, that's
sides.
true.
That
Yeah.
would benefit both sides
I mean,
too.
those are like, see, that would, but
Give
that would is
Brown
probably
his
one of
fresh
those
start
like
and
more
everything.
like mid trades. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that really moves the needle
Yeah.
forward or
I don't think
back,
there's
but
enough.
I
There's
think
enough
it's just,
help
like,
there
right
for him
there.
if he goes to
Yeah, that's what I
Washington.
said. It'll be a tough sell for Celtics
True.
in general. Like I said, LeBron James
Yeah.
just
I mean,
just
dude,
saying, Jalen Brown would be a great piece for you guys to start over with. I'm just saying, putting it out there. Anyway, continuing on, moving on to the next kind of coaching thing I did want to get into. I did think it was super interesting to see that Monty Williams gets a guaranteed contract for 6 years and $72 million. I mean, I'm throwing it over to you, Jared, first. I mean, what do you think about one, it being that big of a contract, and two, Monty Williams now with Detroit to kind of right the ship there, set the culture, all that kind of stuff? Like, what are your thoughts on Monty Williams?
and glad the man gets paid. Um, I do think he did a fantastic job in Phoenix before, like
Mhm.
turning things around and everything. But I will say, man, that's a big task in front of him, and I think that's why he
That's
gets
a
that
huge
guaranteed
task.
money. I mean,
16
like
and
you got to
66 or
think
something
there's
was that the
we
record?
their overall record was 17 and
17.
65.
So one off.
I pulled them up since you were
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about, yeah, exactly. But I'm just like looking at it, and like, we talked about it off pod, and it's like that's a young roster that you can kind of build around, like with people coming back and things like that. But man, the culture that's there after going 17 and 65, like you gotta be. I mean, they're all great. I'm sure they're all grateful they're NBA players. That's you don't take that away from them. And all these kids, I only say kids because they're probably all younger than me, but all these kids are literally like they've worked so hard to get here that I think it's one.
No, I was looking at
Essentially.
Nolan. I said, grow up. Because he was like laughing because you said everyone's younger. I'm just like, grow up. But he wasn't looking. So
No. But yeah, I think a lot of them should have a chip on their shoulder because they're like
Because they're
like
trash.
snooze. If you're there, I mean, and then they had all the midseason trades. You traded away. We talked
Sucky
about trading
J,
away
man.
pretty much their
Yeah.
best player. And it's
Their
like
most
that's so
consistent guy.
crazy. So
I don't get that.
Yeah,
Like he was
exactly.
so young too. I'm like,
I really
what was the?
yeah, that's a piece you could have really really built around. I mean, I'm happy for him because he went to like hopefully a contending
Yeah.
team, and they figure it
But
out
what
in
did they
Atlanta.
get? Like
But at the
nothing.
same
Like
time,
I swear it was like I
basically
thought it was
nothing.
like
It
second
was a
rounders or
3-way, and they
something
got
like
Picks.
that.
Wiseman through it, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. It was a Wiseman.
Wiseman
Yeah,
and
okay,
picks.
that's right. Never right. It was a
Yeah, I
nothing,
mean,
but
but still,
still.
like, I
I
mean,
mean,
Wiseman still
Wiseman
got
got
to
to
prove
show
himself
himself out
there
a little
too,
bit more, so that's always nice too.
Yeah. So that's a bright spot. I mean, we talked about it, right? You have Bojan Bogdanovic. You have Marvin Bagley III, which actually they talked about him
Mm-hmm.
reigniting his career in those
Yeah.
first few games that he's with them. You talked about Wiseman, and then you have the young core like with Jaden Ivey, Killian Hayes, like players like that you can kind of still build around, and that's kind of awesome for him. Like he has a decent
Cade
team to
Cunningham,
start
dude.
with. Now staying healthy,
Kate
it's all
Cunningham.
different. Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
forgot about
Yeah.
Cade Cunningham
So
too.
Killian Hayes
That's
is
right,
off the
because he's
bench
coming
now.
back.
I mean, Kate
Yeah.
Cunningham.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, for sure. But I mean, the fact that he's been getting minutes, like he knows what he's getting into, and you guys game experience. But I think for him, it's awesome in a sense of he's guaranteed that he's able to kind of build a new culture, and it's going to be tough because like to build from a losing culture
Yeah.
is always tough. Like to change mindsets, to get them out of like being complacent, being okay with losing, because nobody should be okay with losing. I mean, I've coached multiple teams, and it's like they're so okay with losing that it's like when you win, it's one of those. Yeah, joint team huddle. We'll talk more about it. No, but when you lose, they're okay with it. It's like, dude, nobody
Yeah.
should be okay losing. You should hate losing more than you love to win. That's what we always talk about, right? And when you lose for so long and so much, and you're considered, like you said, the trash of the league, like I mean, it's hard to change your mindset, and so Monty Williams is going to have a uphill climb, but I do think having this kind of youngish core is going to help him build it, because they realize how long they have in the league. They realize that they are playing for contracts in the next
Yeah.
couple of years and whatnot, and with that being said, they have to buy into the system. He's come from Phoenix, where they've gone far, not just because of the players that they have, but because of the systems he's
Yeah.
developed. And I think they buy in. I think he should be successful there. I really do.
Yeah.
I think he's a
Yeah.
good coach, and I really
You know
like
what
the
I'm
way
gonna
he
say
works.
is one, the Detroit Pistons have those types of pieces that I think almost every team wants. Like if they were to like say like try to get like a star guy or move up to like a veteran guy, like there's a lot of pieces down that team that you would want to slot in, whether or not it's a starter or like just kind of somebody that you need off your bench. I think they have a lot of those.
Yeah.
And 2, I do think that they're actually better than they played up to be, because obviously, I mean, let's just keep it a buck. This year was about Victor Wembanyama. Like, if they tanked that deep and they did get him, which was unfortunate because they had the number 1 odds and then fell to number 5, which is like the absolute worst thing that can happen. Like, I mean, and it all panned out,
Yeah.
and you get Victor. I mean, we're looking at a completely different team this year with Victor in tow. Like,
Dude, this would be a
yeah,
huge team, because you got to think with Bagley and Wiseman, like that's
yeah,
size, and you play Webb at the 3. Like,
yeah. I mean,
dude, you can move him to the. I mean, you could technically move him to the 2 and keep Bojan
yeah.
there at the 3.
I mean, it's just
You know, like
I think that's
huge
really
size.
why they look worse than they are, because they just were trying to
Yeah.
lose this year.
They were okay with
Yeah.
being. They were okay with
I
being.
mean, let's be honest. We
like,
all knew
not
Killian
good.
Hayes.
I would say be
isn't
trash,
Killian
but like
Hayes
not
French
being
as well. Am I wrong in saying that?
I want to say he's definitely
I'm not
foreign. I don't
sure.
remember exactly which country. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to put
I
that
couldn't
label
remember
on
if
him
it
if
was
he's
him.
not really.
I feel like it might be him.
I mean, he might be, but it says his birthplace is
Oh,
in Lakeland,
alright,
Florida.
Oh, well, you just
Maybe he has.
like another country anyway,
maybe he has
right?
roots. Maybe he has. Yeah. I mean, they have all the people who swim, right?
I mean, it's funny because I was like, maybe he had time. I don't know. Anyway, forget it. We're not talking about that part. But yeah, I mean, for sure they had kind of like hopes of getting him, and it just sucks that they didn't. Because, like you
Yeah.
said, I mean, this is a solid team up and down. If they just get that guy, I
Mhm.
mean, or one of them pans out, I mean, they're just like a step or 2 away.
And I mean, they still have the 5 pick. I don't know who's going to be
Yeah.
big past that, but I mean, if you can trade for
Yeah.
it, I mean, you might be able to get a decent name out
Honestly,
of it
you
as
know
well.
who they remind me of?
I mean, would you take a Jaylen Brown there? Would you take a Jaylen Brown there? I mean, like that could be options to give the 5 pick and
Brown there.
that. I mean, it's like 5.
Jaylen Brown
I mean,
signed to go there.
but you'd but I mean, at the same
Yeah.
time, you know what I mean? Like you'd have a new
Yeah.
coach, you'd have all this other stuff. You have decent role players
That does
around you
seem
that
like
can
a
help
Jalen
you, and
Brown
it'd
team
be your
from
own
like
team.
the Pistons. Like it
You know,
seems like a
yeah.
kind of rough and
So,
tumble group.
and then with Cade Cunningham coming back, like that adds to
Yeah.
it as well. So, I mean, they're like at least 7,
Yeah.
maybe
I thought you were
8
gonna
deep.
say
Yeah, the only thing
7,
is I
8 years away from.
Yeah.
I was like,
The only thing is I was
damn.
like,
No, 7.
I was gonna say I don't see the
No, I'm looking at
Celtics
their
taking
depth
that
chart.
trade
Like they
just
have
because,
decent
like,
players, you
I
know.
mean,
Yeah,
you got Jason Tatum and you
but the
want him to
5
win.
pick. I
You
mean,
know what
if
I
you're
mean?
doing it,
I was like, I would take number
yeah.
3 and Dame over number 5 and where they at for the Pistons. But anyway, I mean, I think that should do it for the. Unless you guys have another coach you guys want to talk about, Nick Nurse going to, you know,
Not really, but I'll say it since we were saving
yeah,
it for the pod. But I just find it interesting how all the coaches. We could discuss it a little bit if you
yeah,
want. If not, it's cool. But like how all the coaches are kind of moving within
yeah,
conferences, like within their conferences, you know. And it's like you would think they would go to the
yeah.
other sides, you know, so they
Well, I
don't got to
mean,
see their team, so they don't got to deal with
in
that,
real
and it's
time,
a
other
little
than,
different in that regard, you know.
I mean, just off the top, man, because I actually don't know. I'm not being like a. It's not a loaded question. Other than Monty Williams, what Western teams lost their coach?
Houston lost
Didn't
their
oh my
coach.
god, now I gotta
Gotcha.
look.
Okay. So, but they got
Phoenix
that one
lost their
filled.
coach. I know there's rumors that Ty Lue may
Houston,
end up leaving the
Phoenix.
Clippers because there's a lot of teams pursuing him.
Well, I mean,
Um,
they better release him soon if he's gonna be.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Nick Nurse left the Raptors, but I
That's
mean,
East.
West Side. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like West Side. Wait, where did Nick Nurse end? I think he's was the 76ers?
Yeah. They remember
Yeah.
they traded a doc for a nurse.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was another
That's right.
weird. Like I don't know. There's like to me the thing that I think is
Because I mean, like Frank Vogel going
yeah
to
the thing that stands
Phoenix
out to me is
and
that you
things
still
like
have guys
that,
like
and
Mark Jackson who haven't yet gotten like I know he's happy doing the commentary thing, but it's just weird to me that you have so many like basketball minds outside of the guys who've been in the league and then just switched teams like 5 times. Like I don't know.
It's
It's
like
just a
maybe if
weird.
they're switching for 5 times, there's a reason why they're switching for five
Yeah, and
times.
not just that, but it's like they're going to these teams that were like ready built already, and
Yeah.
it's like you know what I mean. Like Milwaukee getting who did they get? They got somebody who just left another team.
I thought they
Milwaukee
haven't signed.
signed.
Oh no, they did. It was
Yeah, because we were talking about
that
like it
one
was
was
somebody
Adrian
like
Griffin, no?
yeah, you're right. Like Adrian Griffin going there, and like I don't
yes,
know. It's just
Adrian
like a
Griffin.
weird carousel of guys like moving from one team to the next, and it's like I don't know if that's I don't know. I think we're kind of at this point, and I think we've all agreed on this point at some point in time. Like there has to be kind of this realization that sometimes it's just your players aren't very good together or something. You know what I mean? Like how many different coaches can we throw at it before we realize like, hey, maybe it's the team that needs to change and not the coaches? I don't know. That's just me because there's a lot of these teams that I'm like Monty Williams first. Like that was one of my number one. I was like, bro, how do you let go of Monty Williams and not think it's because of the Kevin Durant trade? Like it's not Monty. It's the fact that this trade just
Like, why
happened.
don't you just get? Well, the part two is like just give him one more
Yeah,
year
it
with
just like
that
the
to
big
be able
move
Yeah.
to
just happened.
integrate the
Yeah,
system.
that's the
Yeah,
weird thing.
and it's not like it's literally a
Yeah,
superstar moving.
I mean it's
You
a
know what I
seismic
mean?
shift in how
Like
the
it's
team
not like
plays too, right? Like they
Yeah.
lost a lot of their
yeah.
depth.
Well, we
Yeah,
talked about it, like the ball, like who holds the ball
yeah,
and what Kevin's doing. And Kevin didn't look like he really knew the
yeah,
system that well when
Mhm.
he was playing, and so he didn't know. Like you could tell, like there's certain times, like oh, should I kick the
yeah,
ball here or should I just create space or we're
Mhm.
running this play, but like where
yeah,
should I be like making the back cut
Mhm.
No,
to or
really. Yeah.
something? Like you could kind of tell the hesitation
yeah,
in his movements,
exactly.
and I think that goes into the
That's why it's
midseason
such a
trade.
weird
So
complex. I don't know. But I mean,
yeah,
we're gonna get finally. I think we should
I
get to the
agree.
meat and potatoes of this conversation. We're gonna talk about the Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets. Game one happened. Obviously, the Nuggets take it by 20 points. I mean, what did you guys see from each side, and kind of what was your who were your X factors for the game, and then who do you think will kind of be the X factors, in the following games as we head to game two? I'm gonna start with you, Nolan, first.
Um, the two that weren't an X factor were Struss and Martin,
We
and
do got to
we
talk
we
about that.
harked on
Yeah.
how not dominate, but how impressive they were for the previous series and the
Hmm.
series before that and the series before that, and obviously game one a little different. Maybe it is because the Mile High City. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know. But I do think that those two need to be involved in the right ways, um, by their own doing, in order for
Did you
this
see
team
the
to success.
the differential in like the elevation thing that they posted right before the game started?
No, what?
It was like basically like Miami's
Oh, like
gym is like
6 feet above water.
yeah. It's just like literally like way farther. I don't know. I thought that was so interesting. I was like, damn, I didn't realize it was that much of a disparity.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I mean,
yeah,
you even look at it, Butler didn't really do that great either.
yeah,
So
hmm
it was just kind of a dry game all around. I think Adebayo had the best game, which is nice because you want your
yeah,
big man to be able to do well against someone like Jokic, who isn't necessarily the best defender.
hmm
So that is something. So you got to make Jokic choose. Be a hardworking defender and facilitate, or be a hardworking defender and score the ball. Because if you let the rest of his team get going, I would much rather have Jokic drop 40 on me than allow his team around him to drop 40 as well on me.
yeah.
Um, but I do think, and I said,
I.e., Aaron Gordon going off in that first
yeah,
quarter. Yeah,
I mean, Aaron Gordon, he's having the lottery pick career that we expected from him when he came out of
yeah.
Arizona. And now that
That's a
he's
great
really
point.
shown it, he's found a team that not only is successful, but is allowing him to be highlighted in the right ways, because it's not give the ball to this guy because he's the one who's going to get it done for us. It's give the ball to Jokic and he's going to find the people to get it done for them.
Yeah,
And Denver Nuggets only got 104 points, but that is also some credit to the Miami Heat in some ways. They're not the highest scoring team, but for an undersized team like the Heat to play against the Denver Nuggets and still keep it within relatively a 10-point game and only allow them 104 points in today's game in the finals, that's a solid
yeah.
sign for me,
And
at
they've
least
been
for
the
the
number one offense in the playoffs. So I
yeah,
mean,
exactly,
kudos to
exactly.
them. 104 is not
Yeah.
that
Um,
high. I mean, it's high, but
No, no,
I
no.
mean, yeah, like
And I think that one of the last thing I'll touch on before I let Jared kind of take the reins is, they did a good job of balancing out the rebounds against the Denver Nuggets. And I mentioned last series against the Lakers, that's one of the biggest things is they were able to out rebound and get those second chance
mhm.
opportunities. The Miami Heat and the Denver Nuggets, I think, had a differential of 2 rebounds. Probably I'll have to check, but I don't remember which one. But either way, I think that that is a key thing in order
Mhm.
to keep this game close in any fashion, because, like we mentioned, they get those second chance, they flick it out to the top of the key, you run out to the top of the key, they flick it to the wing, boom, open
Yeah.
shot for MPJ, for Aaron Gordon.
Mhm.
So,
They won the
oh, they
offensive
did.
board battle.
Oh, see,
Miami. Miami won it
yeah,
11
See,
to
that's
6.
the thing too is they actually had a lot of open shots that were just missed. I mean,
yeah.
Duncan Robinson, Max Struss, Gabe Vincent, all those
And if
guys.
those
Like
guys start
they
hitting,
had opportunities.
man,
Yeah,
this could be a really crazy
I mean,
series.
Max Stress was 0 of 10
yeah.
from the field and
I
0
think
of 9
I
from
think
the
there's like a
3-point line.
statistic.
Like, that's
He's like the first player to shoot
crazy.
10 shots and have 0 points in a finals or something like that.
These
I was
stats
just
are
like,
ridiculous.
yeah.
He's in the record
Like he's
books.
still gonna get a contract, but I was just like, damn, man, you better make some
Yeah.
shots this next game, dog.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
yeah,
I think this is going to be a good series if they can keep the same energy for this game one extended throughout the rest of the series. I'm glad it just won't be kind of a runaway, and I think it'll be cool.
yeah, I agree. I was just laughing because I saw like the little ear.
Oh, my cat in the background.
Yeah, that was funny.
I was like, no, because I was
Um,
looking. I was like,
at first I was like, oh, you guys have another dog? I'm like, oh nope, that's not a dog. Anyway, throwing it over to you, Jared. I mean, what did you kind of see? Obviously we talked about, you can just talk about whatever side you want to see, but I mean, what kind of adjustments do you think have to be made by the Miami Heat in game two if they do want to make this a little bit more of a competitive game in the second one?
I mean, it's tough because I was reading the article here, and it talks about how Martin might be out as well because he's sick. It says Martin ill,
It's that
no
high
status change to
altitude.
hero as well. Like that was that thing. So
High
that's the other
altitude
thing that I was
sickness is the
wondering too.
thing.
He did.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah, that's why. And he played 25 minutes. He obviously did not play well. One
yeah.
of 7, 3 points, one of 2
Mhm.
from the 3-point line. But I mean, that's one person that you would love to see step up. But if he's not going to play, I'm sure Max Stress isn't going to go 0 for 10
Yeah.
again. I want to knock on
Yeah.
wood for that, but I'm pretty sure he's not gonna. Man, getting more production from Duncan Robinson. We just talked about how great series he had. Kyle Lowry kind of doing his thing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Highsmith, man.
Bro.
I didn't even know who. Like, I saw that kid running around. I was like, "Who
Yeah,
the
you gotta
hell
get
are
him from
you,
somewhere,
man?" I said
man.
Hightower at
Is
first.
that his name? Haywood Highsmith?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Haywood Highsmith.
I remember him having like an
And I was watching it,
alliteration
and it's
name,
like his second season in the league and whatnot. Dude, he's from Wheeling, Jesuit. I don't even know where that's from.
Wow,
Like,
a lot of
and
great
to
players
come
to
out
come
on
out
a
of
big stage,
Wheelie Jesuit or whatever
yeah.
you just said.
No, but it's so crazy because like to step up at that big of
Yeah,
a
bro,
stage
yeah.
and like score buckets and do his thing. I was like, damn, where has this kid been? And I think
He's
he
been in the
need like
hyperbolic
it was
chamber
awesome to see
waiting.
him
You
step
know
up.
who he reminds me of
But
though? He reminds me a lot of like guys like you guys had one of
Norris
Shaquille
Cole.
Harrison, Javante Green, like these guys who kind of come out of nowhere and they're like high energy. You know, you put them in the game, no matter what, they just play really hard and like do really good, and then
Yeah.
they disappear once you like take them out of your rotation because your regular starters or whatever get back in or whatever. Like,
Mhm.
but he always is consistent when he gets
Well,
to
he
play.
reminds me of Norris Cole, like the way, kind of the way he plays and whatnot. It was kind of like what Norris Cole did for
Where
Mario
the hell
Chalmers
did that
when
guy go?
Miami
Huh?
was in the stuff. Where
Such
did
a, I
either
know,
of
but
them go,
he's such a
man?
big
Hey,
part of the Miami
they were
Heat.
really good at 2K for me, man. They were
Hey,
good at
you're
2K
damn
for me.
right.
I'm
Yeah,
telling
Mario
you, man.
Chalmers,
Chalmers
bro.
didn't miss for me,
That-
bro.
Yeah,
Chalmers
you had
didn't miss for
that
me.
Mario Chalmers. I don't know what it was. That 2K, he
Dude,
did everything.
Mario Chalmers, Miller,
Yeah.
I had
Battier, like
Darius
you name
Miller
it. Dude, I had the
and
shooters.
Andrew Goodlock,
And I had James Jones.
Wow, man.
Ronnie Price,
Yeah,
Chris
I know.
Duhon.
Those are great
It was like,
names.
I think there are only two that I could. I
Oh,
remember.
dude, Chris
When we got him, I was
Duhon.
Duhon.
like,
I
Chris
could shoot
Duhon,
with.
yes, he's at the later half of his career, but yeah, we got him.
Duhon.
Let's go.
Oh,
No, yeah. So on that time, well, and then I do think like not, and I talked about it
Yeah.
a little bit as we were going into this series. I do think it's fatigue.
yeah. Mhm.
Like you're going into altitude, but it
7-game
is fatigue. Like I
series.
don't want to use like we always talk about. We said we didn't want to talk about the altitude being the factor, but I do think the
It can
fatigue
be
is the
both.
factor.
I
of
mean,
going
Yeah, I
to
mean
seven.
that mix.
That
Having to
adds,
play hard. I think that
Yeah,
adds to it.
exactly.
You know what I mean? But and it kind of shows like Jimmy really wasn't as Jimmy as he
Yeah.
could have been,
He's not as
in my
Jimmy,
opinion.
He's more Jimmy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's not as
Yeah.
himmy, and that honestly, that's kind of a good sign because to only be down, what was it? They lost by
Yeah.
11, and for him to be not that guy and like to have the Bam presence, to have Max Stress go
Yeah.
0 of 10, to have Caleb Martin go 1 of 7, Duncan Robinson 1 of 6, like all these names that we were talking about coming into the series that they had great series and not play that well and still only lose by
And
11.
if you
Dude,
watch them,
they
if
all
you
show
watch
up.
them shoot, it looked like it was just like that little
Yeah,
extra.
you could tell it was short.
Everything,
Like their
everything was
legs.
short. Yeah.
You could tell their legs were just weren't
Yeah.
under them every time they were there, and you got to tip your hat to like and I know we talked a lot about Miami, but I'm going to talk about Denver because we got to tip your hat there. You know, Aaron Gordon came out, MPJ came out,
KCP,
you know, and that's
once
the help
again.
that they were getting. You know, yeah. KCP hit some good shot, has some big shots. Bruce Brown. Their rotation is just like I said, well-oiled machine, and their defense, like they actually looked like they were doing a lot. I mean, they didn't do as much as far as the offensive boards like Nolan was talking about. I think Miami did an amazing job of capitalizing on not giving them second chance points, but I do think Denver doesn't look like they really missed a step by being out for that long. We talked about that break could possibly slow their.
I mean, what
slow
did
them
Murray?
down,
Murray
right?
didn't
And I
Murray
don't
start
think
off
it's-
like 6 of 6 or something like that, like right off the rip?
Dude, Murray was
Yeah,
on
stupid.
fire. Like Jokic didn't even have any points.
Shooting
Like
50%
he had
in
like
a
8.
final
When I
is
looked in the beginning, it was like
impressive in any
8,
sport.
9,
Yeah.
like
Insane.
8, 7, and like
Yeah.
3 rebounds. And I was like, dang. And then I
He had a
turned it
near
back
triple
on, and
double
he
at
has
half,
18.
right?
I think he had 18.
Probably.
Jamal Murray?
Yeah.
I'm like, bro.
No,
Was it
Jamal
like
Murray.
Ended with a
something 8 and
double
6 or
and 6
something?
rebounds.
Jamal
Ended
Murray,
with 6
and he,
rebounds.
26, 10, and
Oh, yeah.
6.
So it was like that.
Jokic only got his triple double in like the last minute and a half of play. He got the last rebound.
Even that. Like,
But I mean, still. Like that's just so crazy. And no, it was crazy because he had like 13 points, and I was like, dude, he's not doing anything. And the next thing I looked, he had 23. I was like,
Just,
bro.
yeah. I don't know, bro. It's
So-
insane. Like,
So I I'm kind of like going. I want to go back on my thing.
It's
I
too
think
late,
it's gonna be
Pounce.
Nuggets in 5 at this point. But I don't like I said. I went 6 based off of the fact like I think Jimmy has way too much fight in him, and that's what he
Yeah.
showed last finals, last time they were in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, everything, all the history has shown that Jimmy will fight
Yep.
you to the end, and I think he's gonna steal
Yeah.
games here.
I'm not taking my take
and
back in
so
any
that's why I
way.
think in
I will
6.
say though, my take was solely based on emotion, man, because I just want Jimmy to get like.
Yeah,
I
you
know
want Jimmy to
Jokic
get one.
deserves it, but in the same sense, I'm like Jimmy's
Jimmy
older,
also
you know what I
deserves
mean?
one.
Yeah, and it's like it's one of
He
those things where
does.
it's like
He does. I mean,
he
we
needs
talked
to
about
get
it last
one,
time on the
man.
pod.
Like I feel like so many people
Yeah.
downplay his accomplishments because he hasn't yet gotten there. But like if he wins this, like it'll solidify everything about his career thus far and how great of a leader he's been on this team. So
For real.
for me that's
I
the
agree.
story I want. But I do agree with all of your points. Like I do think like the Nuggets are just they look so freaking good. Like they're such a well-oiled
Yeah.
machine. Like I'm just rooting for the underdog in this one, man.
It's gonna be
'cause-
crazy in the offseason when they
Man,
trade Jimmy Butler.
Miami
and
took
Bam
if
for
Miami took
LeBron.
game 1, we could be really, really talking about that crazy turn. I missed the whole
He just
LeBron
said
thing, but
it's going to be a crazy offseason when they trade Jimmy and Bam for LeBron. That would never happen.
they're trading Duncan Robinson and somebody for LeBron.
Duncan Robinson.
Hey, he got the contract, man. That's where your money's at. You got to get rid of that money.
Trades. These are just like the money makes sense, guys. Hello,
Let's
Duncan
do
Robinson.
it.
Yeah.
Signing trade Max Struss for LeBron James.
I mean, he was 0-10, whatever.
I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, it's part of me that's like always thinks like, damn. Like I always wonder, like, not that it's a guaranteed lock that it would have happened, but just imagine if LeBron had stayed and then Jimmy was able to join him for like the once Wade left and just slid right in there.
Just like that first part of it.
It's just one of those things. I'm just like, man, if he had just stayed there and let guys.
Or if they were all in Chicago, like everybody was talking about, like Dwayne Wade going there and things like that. I mean,
I was like, there's so many what ifs
too.
for the damn Bulls.
There's a lot of scenarios that could have, and like watching Manifest. If you guys watch Manifest, like they were talking about like all these all near misses kind of thing, and that like popped to mind because we always talk about sports and like like people just near miss
like
being on the same team at the same
fucking
time with these pieces. Yeah, and exactly things like that. And then look what happens. Like it basically kills his career after
It
that.
sucks.
He's
That's
still considered one of the best point guards,
team.
but I mean that killed his career when he had to go to
that team.
the
To me is
like,
one of the biggest misses because I think Dwight is like his peak. Whew, he had like an opportunity to be one of the greatest, man.
Wasn't Powell there at the same time
for the CP3.
in the CP?
Oh, he would have been traded in that trade. That's right.
But I'm just saying.
But still, Dwight, Kobe, and CP3. Yeah, Lamar was supposed to leave. I remember Lamar.
It's just crazy to think about that now, considering like where the league is now and like how many teams basically look like that team.
Because realistically, we probably would have gotten CP3, and then they remember the whole conversation about technically they would have taken Gilbert Arenas' contract as well. If he could have.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
We probably still would have been able to sign Matt Barnes because it was Kobe himself who reached out to Matt Barnes. I was like, that could have
Agent Zero off the bench, man. Like you didn't win a bunch anyway. Like it matters.
Hey, you gotta catch Jordan.
I was like, you guys already had so many damn championships. I was like,
okay, you don't want more?
We just want one
they were trying to catch Boston.
30 years. We just want one. Like
that's what it was, right? You're trying to catch Boston.
Gosh. Anyway, I mean, this conversation went all over the damn place just now. But I mean, yeah, it's funny because there's so many scenarios. I think we could just go on like 100,000 tangents. The last point I did want to kind of get into because it was an interesting thing that was brought up. I believe it was on. Gosh, I forgot. There's so many podcasts out there. It was brought up on a podcast regarding who's the clip that I sent you about? Was it him? It was Agent Zero, right? Was it not him we were talking about? That was talking about
or
might have been
Nikola Jokic.
Oh yeah. I think so.
Oh, you recommended that we would listen to.
I think it was Gilbert.
Yeah. So basically,
Gilbert.
So Gilbert Arenas talking about Nikola Jokic, and I was kind of curious on your thoughts about. So, like, obviously, we've talked about regularly that we thought he should have been the MVP of this year. his claim essentially was that because he's not like a sexy game type of guy, he's not that big of a draw, which is why this finals will not really be watched, and he's not really hyped up to be the star that he really is, and he's deserving of.
The face of the
Yeah, yeah, and all
NBA.
that kind of stuff. I'm curious. Do you think that as we're watching him go through his career, obviously it's not near the end there, but do you think that Nikola Jokic, like the way he's played thus far and the way he'll probably continue to play, because it seems like he has that kind of game that'll age very well, like will he be the type of player that could squeeze his way into like the greats conversation, or do you think he's just going to be like kind of like this weird like I'll liken him to the older Sabonis, our what is
Artivas?
it? Our Don Artevis, yeah. Artevis Sabonis, like where it's like he had like kind of this all around game that was really not that sexy, but like people were unappreciative of who he was in that time. Like, is this going to be one of those situations, or do you think that Nikola Jokic will end up kind of being one of those guys that could be like on the pedestal one day, later on in his career? Either one, open house. I'm just letting this free flow between the two of you.
I'll go first, Nolan. I'll go first. I do think that at the end of his career, that he will be considered one of the greats.
Ooh.
Just so the way he plays the game.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to put Russell Westbrook there for all the triple doubles and the flash and whatever. Yeah, Jokic doesn't have the flash, but man, how many triple doubles does he have this
Yeah.
postseason? It
The
kind of
most
just
in
goes to show
history.
his
Yeah.
game. Yeah, and it goes to show like it may not be flashy, but it's so effective because he's literally scoring like the last game 24,
Mm-hmm.
14, and 10. It may not be a big like 30 whatever point, and they win by 11. They were up by
Mm-hmm.
20 at one point, and he wasn't even scoring points, but he was facilitating his offense. He has such a presence to him that even though he's not a big dominant inside man like
Mm-hmm.
Shaq was, like the fact that he controls the pace of the game, controls the flow of an offense, and has to require so much attention. I do think that's what makes him special. He did it better than Sabonis. He did it better than Vlade Divac. These are a lot of big passing names,
Yeah.
big men that didn't get a whole lot of praise of the way they played the game. But I do think the game's evolved enough to where people understand why Jokic is so great, why he
Mm-hmm.
deserves MVPs, why he should have been the MVP this year, and literally why he's showing it in the playoffs. Like he's playing with that chip on his shoulder, and it's kind of where he's from his home country. We come with that chip on your shoulder, but it's like the fundamentals of the way the game is played, very reminiscent to Tim Duncan,
Who he's been
very
compared to
reminiscent
often.
to
It's
yeah,
funny you said
very
that because I was going to
reminiscent
give a
to, like I
follow up.
said,
Yeah.
Vladi Divac with the passing part
Mm-hmm.
of the game, you know, and then just the offensive commanding. You guys said it, like he's a less athletic LeBron James with the
I
vision
thought
that
that
he has
was
and
Luca.
the flash that he can kind of play with too. No, Luca's a little shorter. This is a big man
Yeah.
that can play that post game as well, and like how he controlled Miami. That's what Jokic does now. Like whether it's at the top of the key or on the free throw line or on the block, like he requires that type of attention, and his IQ is just off the charts, and it shows in this playoff run. And I do think at the end of his career, which is far from
I
now,
mean, he's in
if he
year
keeps
9 right
playing the way
now,
he plays, because it's not.
and his
Yes. Oh,
styles
and it's not even like
can last.
his style is not even like asking him to do a lot, and he has the players around him who buy into that system and understand who he is and what he is as a player and what he brings to the table. That if they can keep this core around, dude, I'm not gonna lie, the Nuggets could make a nice little name for themselves starting this
Yeah.
season. And I think that it all starts. And not saying Jamal Murray is not a big part of it, but it all starts literally what Jokic has done for that
Yep. Starting
organization.
off with the first championship in
So
franchise history would be a pretty big, beginning to that whole
yeah,
legacy. But throwing it over to you, Nolan, what are your thoughts on Nikola Jokic?
I definitely think he can be considered one of the greats, but it has to be, yeah, it has to kind of rely on him getting a chip at least under his belt first, and he's right at the door right now, um,
Mm-hmm.
because we
Mm-hmm.
hold a lot of greats to specific kind of standards, and
Mm-hmm.
not bringing it up again, but
mm-hmm.
the biggest thing of why Jordan is voted as higher than LeBron is because he can lead his team into a championship, not just take them to the finals. And if
Mm-hmm.
Jokic All right, we're not getting into that. But
today.
if Jokic can prove to,
Hey, I didn't say anything.
I've specified. I've specified that we're not getting into it today. That's all I'm saying. I don't care. Like I'm just saying we're not
But that's
getting
what I'm saying.
into
Like
it today.
if he's able to show that he can,
You're right, dog.
I was stretching my neck and it came off.
Oh,
If he's able to show that he can lead his team to the finals and be the reason why, and like the clip I sent you guys, like him just seeing a hand gesture from Kyle Lowry and able to like regulate his whole team, saying, "Hey, they're running this defense," and you see the whole defense spread out in what exactly he's showing. That's a leader, not just showing what you can do with the ball in your hand, not just showing what you can do in the box score, but leading your team in the ways that are not numeric. And so I think that he has an opportunity to, I would say, guaranteed. He finishes this series and wins the chip. He is, by the end of his career, barring anything bad happening, knock on wood, he will be top 10 at least. What he goes up there from there is up to him and what he can do with the teams that he's going to be getting year in and year out. But I do think that just based off of what I see, in my opinion, if he at least solidifies this chip this year, he's going to be at least top 10 greatest of all time.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I think you got a really great point about it's just not about just filling up the box score and getting there if you're going to end up losing anyway. just No, just kidding. Anyway, we're going to close it out here. I think those are great points on Nikola Jokic. Like, obviously, respect to the man. Like, he's doing it. He's doing everything that his team. Yeah, I mean, he's being a leader, which I think is the biggest thing. Obviously, I think he has some of the most quotable, like whatever quotes out there for everything that every time they interview him, he's going to be like probably on the. We'll probably have one of those lists one day where we talk about like the people who are the best on the mic because he's moving up there. He's got some funny stuff he says all the time. So, yeah, thank you for joining us on this episode of After the Buzzer, boys. Where can the people find you? Starting off with you, Nolan.
On Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at Nolan KYT, Nolan KYT.
My man, throwing it over to you, Jared. Where can the people find you?
I am on Instagram and Twitch at JShirai, JSHIRAI, and on Twitter at JShirai808.
Yes, sir. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at KONE, that's KAYOHKNEE. You can also check us out on Instagram at The Poi and Soy Podcast. Hot takes coming your way. We got some, random clips that'll only be exclusive to Instagram, so go over there and check it out. We thank you so much for joining us. As always, I will say this before I end the podcast here. If you do have any thoughts, any hot takes, anything you'd like us to discuss in the future, tweet at us with hashtag Poi and Soy. We'd love to hear from you guys. Anyways, that'll do it for us. It's been a pleasure. It's been a joy from all of us here at Poi and Soy.
Good vibes and love, everybody.
Shoot, butter.